Okay, so it's January, New Year, brand new show here at Shop Talk. Chris and Ken's weekly report, 60 minutes with all the bullshit we can fit. And we're back for another show in the new studio.
Yes, we are. What's your New Year's resolution?
Don't screw this show up. Other than that, try to not be fat. Try to get less fat. Don't get any more fat.
Wow. All right.
It was hard, dude. Listen, I live with a house full of women that love to cook, and the holidays are brutal. They're brutal. You can't see this from the show, but behind me, I have safety pins with elastic straps holding this shirt on now because the holidays were so good to me.
You're such a liar. That's funny.
It was brutal.
That's funny. Yeah. I think the holidays are great. We had a fun time. But I think kids make it, all that much more fun.
Oh.
I saw you playing trains with your grandson.
Wait, listen, better than trains. I got to tell you this story, because I wrestle with the idea that I'm actually somebody's grandfather now, constantly. But I had the opportunity to do something that my grandfather did for me when I was a kid. I actually played Santa Claus for the grandkids.
Nice.
It was so cool. Like, I stashed the whole Santa Claus outfit out in the garage and, went out and did the switcheroo and came through the woods with a bag like I was, lost and trying to find my way. So it was really cool anyway.
That's fun. Good times. Yeah, I'm reporting live from the Great Wolf Lodge in Colorado Springs. If you don't have kids, you would have no idea what that is, but I guess there's a bunch of them all over the U.S., and they are giant indoor water parks.
Oh,
giant.
Yeah. See,
indoor water parks.
I've been past them 100 times. I have no idea what they are.
Yeah, and it is way too much fun. My son talked me into going down some water slide this morning that literally gave me an enema. Like, I felt like I was going 60 miles an hour. It's like the floor drops out from under you, literally. Like you're standing there and it's like 3, 2, 1, and the floor drops out and you go straight down.
I saw the video, dude. I saw it.
Good times.
So good. But you know, this is in contrast to what everyone else is doing because the entire nation is under freezing cold temperatures. I actually I don't have the video up. I saw Patrick, that used to be with SNS and JP, went outside the other day and did this thing where he threw a cup of hot water in the air and it literally made snow.
I saw Jake Burton do that too.
Immediately went outside to do that. That was the coolest shit I ever saw.
You're like, what? Huh? Yeah.
Mr. Science.
It's got to be so cold for it to do that.
Dude.
Yeah.
It's entirely
and we are not,
cold.
Man, we are not that bad here. I think it's got to be in the 50s today.
Are you kidding me?
I shit you not, man. It's sunny. I'm looking the wrong way, so I can't see the mountains, but it's brown, and there's not a snowflake in sight, and I live in the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah,
sorry to use my dick fingers, but
yeah. I've been to Ken's house, and when you walk out of Ken's house and look to the left, it's a beautiful view of the Rocky Mountains, man. Like I'm seriously
jealous.
Really
the foothills. That's really the foothills.
Dude, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah, for me, it's serious. So
yeah, when are we gonna ride again out in the Rockies, huh? When's that gonna happen?
This year. Dude, that's what? If anything is my resolution, this year I'm gonna ride more. I'm gonna work a little less. We're gonna work a little smarter. I mean, we got so much stuff going on this year, and I'm blessed for that. But man, 2017 kicked my ass.
Yeah, it was a busy year, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the same way. Between you and I kind of starting this and getting this going, getting this whole thing going, and then me working with a bunch of new clients, a bunch of new events, traveling, riding, test riding bikes, getting articles done. I mean, it's the thing that I like, and I think it's the same thing that you like, is kind of the eclectic nature of what we do.
Yeah.
Which I think, kind of brings us around to some of the news that we have. I mean, we've got some news that's pretty eclectic. We seem to have a lot of Harley Davidson news today, which is why I'm trying to balance it out with my Indian shirt. I don't want to seem too biased, but it seems like there's a lot. People are talking a lot about Harley Davidson on both sides of the coin, and I don't know where you want to stop or where you want to start.
I kind of
think it's worth kind of doing those in succession. If you think it's worthwhile.
I think I want to start a little more on the positive side because there's been so much talk today about, motorcycling is down, Harley Davidson sales are down, and actually Harley Davidson stock has been upgraded. I have a little report here that came in today from the stock exchange Zacks Investment Research, from a hold rating to a buy rating. Actually sees the quarterly report of Harley Davidson in a positive stature, and they're upgrading the stock. So, a lot of the things that Harley Davidson's been doing that we'll talk about in some of these other news segments, it seems like they're starting to pay off. They got some good action going on, so that's the positive.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, obviously that's one place saying, but hey, if they're not saying sell, that's always a good sign.
Right.
And I think, well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. It depends on where you're holding it too. I guess that could mean as well that, the stock is up so much that you should sell it. But it means that it's going to go down. But that being said, a buy is always good, regardless for that company. So I think when you're looking at it, it's so hard for me to look at kind of traditional stocks now that I'm so involved in kind of other forms of making money that it doesn't seem, it seems like kind of pie in the sky to me. But I get it. They're saying, oh, it'll go up $5-6 in the next year or something, which at this point is like a 10% increase, which is great, if that's the case. But I also, the other side of that, the flip side to that is, if you want to pull that up, the Motley Fool, who pretty well respected, but also, incendiary. He likes to have, big statements. He doesn't,
right.
There's not a lot of like, oh, maybe. He's like, hey, Harley needs a new CEO and a whole new leadership team. And that seems a little far-reaching because we don't know what's going on there.
It seems far-reaching, but there's part of it, and I don't want to say this against Harley Davidson's corporate structure or anything, but I mean these are changing times. To suggest that all companies need a change in attitude, direction, perspective, like everything, and if that can happen with the management team that you have in place, that's great. You know what I mean? But what he's quoting here is after 4 years of losses, you know what I mean? Like, big things do need to happen at Harley Davidson, which is something I think they're totally aware of. I think we've seen more from behind the curtain, as it were, that Harley Davidson is doing as far as bringing other people back into the fray that were super effective, on their way up with things. And, they're making some really smart choices when it comes to new riders, to outreach. They're doing really good stuff. So
new models, obviously, and I think that's the other part that needs to be recognized is when you launch 8 new models, it is going to cost you money. Like, there's no way you're going to see a return on that immediately, and so it's pretty hard to fault them for all the efforts that they've been making to try to kind of better their brand, better their company. But you and I also know we come from a very different background. A corporation is it's like politicians. You're going to hear what you want to hear, until everything blows up, and then you're going to hear all the stuff that you were like, oh, I thought maybe that was happening. And so, you and I come from a very different perspective, just in the sense that, I feel like there's a lot of communication, a lot of honesty. We try not to, pull the wool over anybody's eyes, and we try to speak as freely as we can, without, intentionally hurting anybody's feelings. But that's just not true of a corporation. They are after one thing, and it's the mighty dollar.
Well, and even more than that, what we found out in the era of ravenous capitalism, which is what I like to call it, is that they're after a good report for their shareholders. Which I think is, and this is not towards Harley.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, there is. If you consider this, Ken, let's back up. Let's back up for just 1 second and talk about the fact that some of the greatest achievements that have gone on in the United States have happened in a time when corporations and companies, some of the biggest ones that we've had, Hershey, Budweiser, on and on and on, they were not just responsible for employing people in that region, for selling a product, for reporting to their investors. They built communities. They built schools. They built amusement parks. They were in the thread of what made a community what it is. You know what I mean? And like a lot of that with the need to constantly report positive to, the shareholders, and especially with a bunch of the new tax stuff we got going on, we're losing that. Every day we lose a little bit more of that, and it's a shame, because the foundation that makes America the great country that everybody wants to talk about, that is subject to being in jeopardy,
Agreed. I agree.
But the one thing I definitely want to talk about before we get off of this, the Motley Fool, one of my favorite quotes right here. He quoted Warren Buffett in this post, and it says, investing legend Warren Buffett once noted, "You only find out who is swimming naked when the tide goes out," which is another way of saying everyone looks like a genius in a bull market. I would go out on a limb to say that in this next year or so, maybe it'll be 2 years, I would further guess that it's going to happen this year. We're going to start to see a lot of people who are actually swimming naked. There's a lot of people out there talking about, really knowing the path forward, and, a lot of the stuff that's gone on with millennial marketing and everything else, we're going to find out it actually didn't provide any kind of a return on investment.
Sure, but I don't think that'll ever be admitted to. I don't think that anybody's ever. Yeah, maybe it will.
Like Warren Buffett said in that quote, when the tide goes out, that's it. If you're naked, you're naked.
For sure.
Back to Harley Davidson in another report, we have proof of what we were just talking about. Amid sales drop, Harley Davidson wants to teach more to ride. And this furthers some of the stuff we've been talking about for, a couple shows now, that Harley Davidson's plan for the next 10 years is not just recycling the same customer base. They're looking for brand new riders, brand new to motorcycling, brand new to the brand. And that's where I think some of this change in their quarterly report's coming from.
Yeah, and I think that their, whatever their Rider's Edge program is great, right? It gives people an opportunity to learn how to ride. In Colorado, I don't know about anywhere else, but you actually get your license when you're done. You actually take the test right there and do the whole thing. And I think that that's great, but I still think that the best thing that anybody could possibly do is get out and start teaching little kids how to ride. That's, we got to be looking 10 years down the road. We got to be getting 8, 10, 12-year-olds, out on motorcycles. And I'm as guilty as anyone. I have not gotten my kids on a motorcycle, and it's simply because they're just not that interested in it.
Now, do you think...
And I don't know if I had just gotten a bike and said, hey, if you ever want to try it out, but for me to go, hey, I'm going to go buy a bike, and then they might not use it. It's not like you can go sell a PW50 for whatever you bought it for, but or 80, but we're just not. I don't know. Like I said, I'm as guilty as anyone. So,
do you think that that's what we need to do? Is someone needs to come in here and find a way to bridge the gap to real world and tactile experiences to the world of apps and computer programs? Or is there an opportunity for someone to come in with more app based interest and starting to get kids involved in outdoor recreation, the sport of motorcycling, the sport of camping, of doing things outside again, because that's the line of communication that exists.
Yeah, it is. I think it's such a big question, but I also feel like, it's not just the motorcycle industry. I feel like there's other industries out there. Hunting is one that comes to mind that's been in a downward spiral since the 70s. And I don't know, man. It's like one of those things where I'm so hesitant to go, oh yeah, let's get some sort of, redirection where it's really, we can kind of tie in apps and computers and whatever into motor. Like, no, man, let's go ride motorcycles. Like that's,
right.
And it's not that I'm poo-pooing what you're saying. It's just that what the hell is wrong with going outside and doing something,
Dude.
That's what you and I did, right?
Yeah, when we were kids, that was the fail-safe of anything. Your parents got aggravated with you. It was like, why don't you get out of here and go play for a while? But that was a different world too, It really was.
Yeah.
So real quick, just to let everybody know, we are on Facebook Live through the CycleSource webpage. We did just secure Shop Talk's own Facebook page, and we'll be getting that up and advertising that to you soon. And we're putting all of these on YouTube, eventually going to be simulcasting to YouTube also. But for now, we have people coming in. Just saw Fab Kevin join us. George Frisell was on. Stephen Bennett with a comment that not with their junk motors oil pumps in 2007-18. They go bad. Several of my friends had this problem. That's not something like through our tech department. It's not something that we've run into, but we'll keep an eye out for that. Ditch is on with us again. Grandkids after several. We've been through Will Ride. They've already picked their bikes. Okay, so Ditch is having good experience with the grandkids.
Yeah.
So throw your comments on Facebook Live. That was the point of that, and we'll try to get to them throughout the show. We got a lot of news to get through along with our guest today. I'm pretty excited. We got Steve Broyles.
Yeah, I love Steve, man. He's great.
Right.
Yep, he's a good dude.
So here's something in from the desk of batshit crazy news real quick. I like to hear.
Yeah, I like those batshit crazy ones.
Dude, and this one's right in my neighborhood too, so like I have to claim this one full on. Apparently, at a dealership right down the road from me, Z&M Harley Davidson, the McMahons, I've known their family forever and ever. We've gone there for events and stuff. It was one of our first advertisers. Someone just the other day was trying to siphon gas out of their outdoor gas tank and lit it on fire, exploded the tank, like part of the building went up. Totally batshit crazy.
Good times.
Gotta love Pennsylvania in the wintertime, baby. I
love the fact that we've got surveillance footage of it, though.
Right.
That's great. That's such a great sign of the times. Having surveillance footage of things that are just like totally crazy. You're like, what?
So
which makes it so much better.
To move on from that, before people really know what it's like to live here in Pittsburgh, Kiriakin.
Yeah.
In the news?
Yeah, they've been getting after it. They obviously they see a need with Indian parts. I know a lot of companies out there have really tried to get after it and go, can I say get after it anymore? A lot of companies have been trying to produce Indian motorcycle parts to no avail or to not much. They haven't had much success with it. And I think it's going to take a company like Kiriakin who has the kind of the reach that they have, as well as the ability to produce as much as they do, to really get aftermarket parts for Indians. But the other side of that is how many Indians are on the road?
Right. And there again, back to Warren Buffett's question about
I just don't know.
Naked.
I just don't know. I mean, are there 10,000? I mean, are there 20,000? Are there 100,000?
I don't know.
There's no way that there's 100,000 Indians on the road, right?
I don't know.
Of like the new Polaris Indians.
Listen, here's right now we'll send out this invitation. Anybody from inside the company Indian that would like to come on and talk about your position in the industry.
I can get somebody.
Let's have someone on. Let's have someone on because it's a question I think a lot of people would like to know. I mean, I'll tell you what, the positive things that they've done in this short 2-year period is they've absolutely recaptured the fevered, if you could call it that, brand loyalty that they used to have back in the day of the old Indians. Because new Indian customers, man, it's not like back in the bottle cap days and the Gilroy days, man, where it was like, a little fad thing that was kicking up. Like, they're serious about the fact that they've chosen a different brand.
Yeah, no, I mean, you see guys like Ricky Rackman, who currently he's out in L.A. He picked up a Roadmaster. He's riding up the coast. Sorry for the rain, buddy. He went over to Indian. They gave him a bike to ride. He put, I don't know how many miles on that thing. And he absolutely loves that thing, right, to the point where he went and sold his Triumph and bought another Indian, bought a Scout. And just is, in love with that brand and what they stand for. And that guy rides, we had him on a couple a couple weeks ago, and that dude rides a lot.
He's more hardcore to me. I got to tell you that because
oh yeah, dude.
Old boy was getting ready to go out on that trip, and I was like, "Are you out of your mind?
And
What's wrong with you?"
Dude. He did it, and I talked to him afterwards, and he was like, "Yeah, it was 40 degrees one day and raining." I'm like, "Bah."
And I've done it. I've done that.
Oh, so have I. Yeah,
I've done it with you
voluntarily. Yeah, not voluntarily. Not like, "Hey, I'm gonna go do this." And yeah.
Jesus.
So yes, I agree with you. I think also the thing that's really kind of touched off or really showed kind of that brand loyalty as well is the idea of this racing. I mean, the flat track racing is hitting kind of a new height, it seems like, and companies like Harley and like Indian are just throwing more and more money at it, and they want to win. And Indian had a huge amount of success this last year doing that, and I know they're hoping that transfers into dollars, sales, all that sort of stuff.
Well, and I'll tell you what, man, back to the things that Harley Davidson needs to do. Harley Davidson, in this one respect, needs to follow Indian's lead. They need a purpose-built motorcycle for the 2018 race season. And I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but that was the secret behind Indian. Indian set out to win races, and they built a bike for it, and they did. You know what I mean? And
for sure.
I think the difference in the program that Harley Davidson had is, they wanted to convert a consumer model over to a race bike, and no disrespect for this, like it just, man, it was disappointing.
It's not, but it's just not the same.
Listen, I bleed black and orange, man, and it broke my heart every time I was going to the track waiting for them to spank Indian's ass, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'd love to be able to get out on one of those FTR 750s. Maybe we can make that happen as well. That'd be a blast.
What's up?
Anybody from Indian listening? No, to really see what that thing's all about.
Right.
We just hurt ourselves. That's the reality.
But that's good.
We just hurt it. But speaking of which, you brought up something last week. So you were talking about Sons of Speed getting a flathead together to race. Are you going to race that?
No.
Pilot that?
No, okay. I would like to, but let's go back to the beginning of the show where I said that my resolution is to not be as fat. The only thing worse than being a racer on a track and being fat is being the fattest one there and too slow because of it. And I've done that before. I raced guy in these little pit bike races on the national level that Rob Bidos used to put on, and I was the biggest guy on the track. And every time he came past me on one wheel, I was pissed.
Yeah.
Guy Cooper, who was a legendary racer on a pit bike, he was disgusting too. But I can't take the heartbreak, Ken.
All right.
So listen, the things that we do have.
I'm not volunteering or anything. I'm just saying.
Hey, I'm looking for somebody. We're looking for a little jockey guy, man. I mean, maybe it's time for your kid to come into the action.
There you go. Yeah.
So the stuff that we do have coming up, it's IMS season. Cleveland is right around the corner. It's going to get crazy, but Cleveland, man, is right in the heart of the Rust Belt. I'm super fired up to do this show. We got a lot of great stuff coming up. Keikoa from Faith Forgotten is going to come down and do a cam chest upgrade, which is pretty badass. We're taking an older 2002 Ultra, and we're going to show everybody how to upgrade the cam chest so that you get the nice hydraulic cam chain tensioners. Pat Patterson is going to be there doing some stuff with oil tanks and fenders.
Excellent.
Will Ramsey is going to be in the house doing fabrication. It's going to be really great show. I actually just got a call yesterday that Harley Davidson is going to be coming on board with some of their dealers, showing us some HD certified tech demonstrations on service on Harley Davidson motorcycles, and I have someone coming in doing some Yamaha customizing. Yamaha had a great program a couple years ago with their little bolts. They sent out 50 bolts to 50 dealers and have them customized. Well, one of those dealers is right down the road from me, and I've talked him into coming up with us and going through some of that and showing everybody what's available with a bolt, because his bike, dude, came back as just like the coolest little bobber. He totally killed it with that thing. It was awesome.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
So IMS is going to heat up, and of course we're going. Cleveland, I think, is the weekend of the 25th. We go from Cleveland to Dallas to Chicago to Washington, week after week, man. It's just going to be nonstop and crazy, and that brings us up to.
And then you'll be right to Daytona.
Yeah, Yeah, and that's the schedule. When I think about it like that, like this is, I'm going to throw this picture up real quick. This is where we're at currently with the War Pony. So the War Pony, if you guys have been following this stuff with us, I had a 2003 Ultra that I basically built a magazine with. I rode it everywhere, had 240,000 miles on it when a friend of mine totaled it. So,
unfortunate.
I couldn't let go of the motorcycle because it was just so important to the magazine and the history of the magazine.
Was that your Hoka Hay bike?
It was.
Yeah.
Rode the Hoka Hay on it. I rode everywhere. Rode to Bonneville like 6 times. So
you and I rode to Bonneville with that bike. Yep. I mean, I wasn't on the back of it or anything, but you were riding that bike and I was riding a different bike.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, just to make it clear.
So I had the bike in the corner for the longest time, and I started hearing about this frame that Paco has, and it takes a touring driveline, motor and transmission, and pops into an FXR style frame. So I decided that, we wanted to build a bike through the IMS series. What could be better than actually come out the other side of that show series with a motorcycle that was just crazy?
Yeah.
Completely different than anything that we've done to this point. So it's been a lot of fun, but man, in a month of shows, we got a lot of stuff to do to finish this bike up, and it's a little daunting.
Yeah. That looks like fun. That looks like a really fun bike right there.
Well, and this is the announcement to make about that, is that when we finish this bike in 2018, we're taking that thing to Bonneville. And I know right up front, we're not going to try to set any record or anything, but I just want to get a timestamp that says we rode the War Pony at Bonneville, and that'll kind of complete the circle of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's killer. That's good times right there.
Pretty awesome.
I guess I'm gonna have to go out to Bonneville this year.
Right?
Again.
Yeah, baby.
That'll be fun.
So, just one thing real quick about that. Since we were in the garage over the holiday break and working on the War Pony, I had a cat. The last show that we did in Minnesota, we mounted the rear fender on the War Pony, and I was talking about what the hell? What's wrong with me? These center punches that we use to find the center of any size hole, right? And
sure.
They're called transfer punches. Guy sent me a private message and said, hey, can you do something on those transfer punches? I've never seen them. That would be a cool tool. So I have a real quick video that I want to put up about that. I'm going to just play it real quick.
Crystal Cycle Source Magazine, Grease and Gears Garage. I had somebody last week when we were in Minnesota ask about we were talking about these transfer punches. I call them centers from calling it live centers, but if you look at these, each one of these is the size of the different hardware you use, and in the very center is a center punch. So the way this works, grab a hammer real quick. Pretty neat tool that one of my machine shop buddies turned me on to. So I want to make a hole in this fender, exactly where that's going to mount. I put my center punch in and my transfer punch, so I'm transferring the center of that piece of hardware, and now I know exactly on that fender where to drill. So nice. You can buy a cheap set of these at Harbor Freight. Obviously the better tool you buy, the longer it's going to last, but there you go. That's the transfer punch.
So that's just a real quick little tech piece, sort of a public service announcement for everybody out there that's doing their garage stuff.
Excellent. That's cool stuff, man. I like being able to watch it on my phone. It's almost real time, so that's cool.
So, where are we at in the news today?
I think we're done, basically. I think we should probably get to Steve.
Okay, let's see if we can get our guest on the line.
Okay. Just to let you know, you're freezing up every now and then on me, so.
Hello.
Mr. Broyles.
Hey,
Mr.
Chris,
Broyles, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. You?
Oh, I'm excellent. You're live with me and Ken here today doing a show from perspective parts of the country. Ken is warm and I'm freezing my ass off.
Yeah, well, I'm right there with you on the freezing the ass off part.
So, man, it's really good to catch up with you for a minute. It's been a while. It's been a while since we got to talk.
Yeah, what is it, Sturgis? Maybe,
yeah.
Huh?
Yep.
Yeah,
We've got some Studley picture of you up as well, just to let you know, up on Facebook. You look like a mean bike builder.
That's
You're like leaning over your bike, all tough.
That's your absolute glamour shot.
There you go. Yeah, that's probably the one that was taken at the World Bike Show there.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. That's
Probably. Yeah. Those are always the most awkward pictures, though, right? I mean, Chris, that picture that you have in the back of the magazine this month with the Twisted T-Bike with you and Heather, and you're looking all hard. It's like so awkward, right, Steve? I mean, whenever you're in there getting a photo shoot done, you want a picture of the bike. The picture of you is not that important, correct?
Well, no, it's not. You know, it's always nice to be able to put yourself with the motorcycle, though. You know, especially with somebody's. You know, so that they understand what's going on with, you know, who built the bike and what's going on with it.
That's the point for us. Like, we always put a picture of the bike with the builder, because it's at the end of the day, and company after company has said this year, that it's about the people, the material things, the parts. That's all cool, but it's really about the people.
Agreed.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So
no, I just said I agree.
Yeah, no, I agree too. Yeah.
So in that, let's put up a picture of one of your bikes, because man, I've been watching your stuff forever, and your motorcycles are always so badass. But it's always cool to check out the finer details and the neat tricks that you did. I think that one of the first things I really got to talk to you about was when you did the reversed heads, where you had the intakes and exhaust swapped on a motorcycle, and you were explaining to me how you did that.
Yeah, that was that's pretty unique to the industry when it came out. You know, people were like, you know, why did you do that? You know, and just, I guess because you can. You know, I mean, that was the answer to that. You know, so it is one of my favorites. You know, that's actually brought to you from my son Steven. You know, with he came up to me after we were doing the biker build-off stuff, and we did the 2 front cylinder heads on Eric's bike. And he came to me and he said, "Hey, Dad, what do you think about doing a motor where, you know, the intake is here and the exhaust is there?" He said, "What do you think of that?" I said, "Yeah, it's done. You know, we can do that." And he said to me, about 3 days after I mocked up an engine sitting on the bench that was just sitting there, he says, "When are you going to start on that thing?" I said, "I already did." I already have. You know, it's already built in the mind.
Right on. So, listen, for people who have never had the time to actually get to sit down and talk with you, where did all of this start for you? Where does motorcycling start for Steve Broyles?
Well, I come from a riding family. I don't know whether a lot of people know that or not, which is, you know, I just didn't decide one day that, you know, I'm going to be a bike builder, or, you know, I'm going to work on motorcycles or whatever. I think it comes from way back when my father rode, and my mother was part of that life, you know, with him. And people don't really understand. You know, my father was a truck driver and rode motorcycles. So I think I come from that era, you know, back in the day in the 50s. And that's where I'm at, you know, 1952 being born, that, you know, motorcycling was pretty cool. It was just more of it wasn't an everyday event like it is today. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, you know, everybody has a bike and everybody's riding and everything else. It was kind of I think it was something that happened when people came back, believe it or not, from World War II, when it really started to take off, or started to do something about camaraderie, you know, and keeping in touch with the people that were part of the unit, or maybe friends in that nature. But so that being said, I can remember, you know, my dad riding, and kind of grew up in that world with my cousins, you know, riding mini bikes and you know, go-karts in the backyard, and just being into that. And then it just gradually moved forward into bicycles, of course, when you're a kid, you know that, you know. Yep. And everybody has to have something like that. And I think part of my first my first endeavor with changing things was when I would lace a 10-speed, take my 10-speed apart, or take a 10-speed rear wheel apart and lace it and true it into a 20-inch bicycle wheel.
Yeah.
You know, and make 5-speed bikes out of them. You know, I thought that was pretty cool. You know, and then build a 10-speed out of it. You know, a little 20-inch 10-speed. And so then that's kind of progressed into that. You know, some of the things that I can remember back in the day. Here's something that most people don't realize is my mother taught me how to weld.
You know, you were telling me this story before. That is something that'll surprise everybody.
You know, my mother, I thought everybody's mother knew how to weld. I didn't know that. I didn't know they didn't. You know, I was about 12 years old and had a paper route, you know, that I was saving my money for. And I wanted to build a mini bike. And the whole story was like, I wanted a mini bike really bad. So my mom says to me, she says, well, if you can build it, you can have it. Well, that's all I needed to hear, you know. And the 20-inch frame came apart, a plate came out, you know, and drilled a hole in it, mounted a motor. I needed to weld the plate to the frame. And that was what my big deal was. So I took my money from my paper route, went across the street. This guy at the muffler shop gas station had an old stick welder that he wanted to sell. And I bought it. I forget what I paid for it. And I brought it home, plugged it in, and was trying to weld this plate to the bicycle frame. And, of course, it was dimming all the lights in the house every time I tried to spark it, you know.
Yeah.
And so my mom came out into the garage. She said, what the hell are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to try to weld this plate. She says, you don't have any glasses. You don't have any gear. You don't have nothing. She said, you're going to blind yourself. And I went, well, she said, let me take you. So she grabbed a hold of me and we went down. Believe it or not, Miller's Welding Place is right up on Middle Belt Road by where I live. And walked in and, you know, of course she asked for all the stuff. You know, I need number 10 glass and blah, 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 blah. I don't know exactly what it was. But, you know, goggles. And the guy behind the counter kind of looked at her like, what else does your husband need, pretty much, you know? And my mom said, my husband don't need anything. He doesn't know how to weld, you know?
That's fantastic.
You know, and the guy kind of snarled at her a little bit, you know, and she looked at him and said, you know, I've been welding since you were shitting green, you know? And she was a welder at Boston Navy Yard.
No shit.
Okay, so she welded the ships, right, the Navy ships that went out of the yard. And they used to call her last name was Williams, so they called her Willie the Welder, you know. Ooh. And she weighed about 90 pounds soaking wet, and part of her job description was to weld the hull of the ship.
Whoa. That's cool.
You know, way up in the point part, you know, that was, as she told me.
That's serious.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thought that everybody's mom knew how to weld, you know. I was like, your mom don't know how to weld, you know? I mean, so those are some of the great stories that I can still remember being a kid, you know. And she took me home and, you know, showed me the right stick and got a piece of plate steel out and laid the steel down. And she actually held me by the hand and guided me in learning how to lay bead. And then she put a couple of plates of steel together and she said, you weld this and I'll be back. And she'd go off and she'd come back and she'd inspect it, you know, and she'd do it. She said, okay, we'll weld it this way. And then I'd weld it over there, you know, and it was kind of fun, you know. So needless to say, I built a mini bike with no brakes on it. And I was coming down the street doing probably, I don't know, 30, 35 miles an hour when I jumped off of it and it went out into the main road. All the cars swerved and missed it. And, you know, my mom came out of the house thinking I was going to be dead in the middle of the road. And when Dad come home, she said, take that mini bike over there. He takes it all apart and go buy him something with brakes on it. So I got it. That's
awesome.
Wasn't the answer to getting my mini bike, I guess, you know.
So when did you first branch out on your own in motorcycling that you knew this is what you were going to attempt to do for a living?
Well, I started working on motorcycles, and I have to say, we worked on everything anyway when I was a kid. You know, I mean, it didn't matter what it was between, you know, anything in the garage, you know, they'd come over and I'd play with it. But I think my honest answer to that would be I put my stamp on everything when I was 17. I think that's when I really started being able to say, I can take this apart and put that together with confidence and make it be something, you know. So I'd say 17 years old. So that was 1969. I think I put my stamp on it and said, this is what I want to do and this is where I want to be, and I want to go in this direction. At least that's what I felt as though that I wanted to do. And believe it or not, it was that or become a doctor. I didn't either one. It was my choices that I wanted to make. So kind of glad I came down this field.
So effectively 5 decades, you've seen the ins and outs, the ups and downs. You've seen the rise and fall, the stars that have been made. You've weathered the whole way through it. And I mean, that's an accomplishment in itself to talk about. But as it applies to, Ken and I were just talking about some of the financial forecasts and the different companies and what's going on today. I mean, what do you see from your experience now? What do you see for what's going on with motorcycling today?
I think the problem that's going to exist is the mom and pop shops. Like this shop here. I've been in this shop right here, and we were just talking about that. I've been into this shop right here 20 years in this shop, and it's 6,000 square feet. We started out, believe it or not, in a 2-car garage is where it started. That's where I started the business at, and we were on commercial property, and grandfathered in it. I still own the property, and believe it or not, I could always walk back to that if I ever wanted to and reopen it there. But the thing was, as we moved forward, we went from a two-car garage size little building into say twice that size, and then from that to 2,500, and from that to this. And we actually own, or I should say we, because I say we because it's people here, like my son and I and my wife and his wife, and we all put our hand on it. It's not like it's just something that's just mine. I feel as though that there's no I in team,
Absolutely.
and I have a good one. So I've got this facility that we're in here is 6,000 square foot with the 2 buildings that are attached, and then attached to that is another 4,000 square foot building that we have that we use for storage and whatever else we're going to plan on expanding with, and I think that if it plays out right, it should be fine. But I'm not seeing it. The business from what it used to be, say back in the early 2000s, midterm, say 2005, when it was cranked back up, when things started to go south in 06. I don't think it's actually ever really recovered strong back again. Like it was back in the 90s. When it was like, Huey Lewis said it. I think I got a new drug. And it was the Harley Davidson motorcycle. I think that it was really expanding and blowing up in the 90s to where we knew that it would have to take some sort of a bubble burst, and it did that.
Yeah.
And then it kind of prevailed, and what was left standing was pretty much, what was going to happen, and I think that in today's world, I think too many people to this thing shop online and don't support the local and don't support the local people. But yet what I find is that, and I'm not saying this to be, I guess for a lesser term, a dick, but
or braggadocious.
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? But you know what? It really pisses me when I get people that come in here and they want to waste, and I don't say waste my time, but it does. It does waste my time. I want to talk to you about, what I got to do to my motorcycle and what cam I should put in it, or what I should do here and what I should do there. And I spend an hour with them discussing the ins and outs of what I feel as though we could do with their engine to give them the performance that they're looking for. And they say, okay, well, I'll see you in a little bit, and you feel as though that, okay, you've done your job. The guy's going to bring his bike in here in a while. And you see him in a couple of months, and he's bought everything online. He's bought it all through whatever, place he can buy it from. And him and his buddy, and what I get is I get the bike that comes in here that him and his buddy have pretty much tore the fuck out of it as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And tried to put it back together to the best of their ability, and it's not correct. Okay. And they bring it in here and they go, "Can you fix this?" And you go, "Yeah, I can." But it would have been a lot simpler, and you would have saved a lot more money had you just brought it to me in the first place. You know.
Yeah. And that's I think that's one of our biggest problems right now, man, is like, just like you said, there's so many people who, like, those couple extra bucks from the parts sales side of everything, like it was the foundation of all of our knowledge and the expertise and the stuff that's going away when these guys are going back to their jobs with the machine shop or the steel mill or wherever else that they're going to make their money instead of that bike shop. That's what we're losing, thanks to Amazon and eBay and, you know, even Chopper Swapper and shit like that. You know what I mean? Because it is that person that has the knowledge that's put those decades of their time into acquiring that knowledge. That's the guy who owns all of that. You know what I mean? There's only so much shit that you can learn from YouTube. I don't care how good it ever gets.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you can never buy experience. You know, if it could, we all would have wrote a bad check for it a long time ago. You know,
That's
you know, and there's no way that you can own that. You know, experience and knowledge are the keys to all success, and you know, I think that's truth. You know, and when you come in to a shop or somebody's shop, remind yourself that, you know, he's got to sit here. The lights have to stay on. The building has to get paid for. The taxes have to get paid. You know, you're part of the working class society.
Yeah.
That's actually part of the, I guess, what you want to call, you know, the trickle down point. You know, it's created up here, then it comes down here. I think Harley Davidson has always tried to kill all the aftermarket shops, which they don't understand that's actually the backbone of their whole business is the aftermarket shops, the small guys out here that promote their motorcycles.
Yeah.
You know?
Sure.
And allow them, like a guy comes in and says, "Hey, I need to fix this, I need to fix." Well, fine, I might be keeping an older style motorcycle running or keeping this together or that together, but what kind of bike is that guy going to go buy when it comes time for him to buy a new one? He's going to go over to the Harley shop and buy the Harley. I mean, if Ford Motor Company played that game, hell, Ford's would have been out of business a long time ago because there would have been nobody to fix any cars throughout the world.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think that they've lost sight that back in the 80s, when Harley Davidson was probably at its epitome, that it was us, the aftermarket shops, that shored them up and held on to that lifestyle, you know, and said, "Hey, here you go." And I think they've lost that.
Well, and you know, man, is that like looking back over your history of being in this business, is that something you would be able to make a comparison for us, like current times compared to business in the 70s? Like, where are we really at as far as the up and down of where this thing is? What is today like compared to motorcycling as a business in the 70s?
I think motorcycling in the 70s was a whole different breed, you know. Back then, this type of biking was a lifestyle. It was different than it is today. Today, you've got doctors, attorneys, you've got businessmen, you've got people that have a better than a 9-to-5. They're business owners. There a lot of things out there besides just the motorcycle itself. You know, back then, guy worked, blue collar guy worked. He came home, he got on his Harley, and he went out and partied and hung out with his buddies over the weekend, and they went on rides and they did this. It was kind of a different lifestyle. It was more of a club style lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know. Camaraderie is really what it is. Today you have that same camaraderie, only it's in a different form. You have the hog chapter, you have this guy's chapter, you have that chapter, you have this club, you have that club. You know, it's not necessarily a hardcore or percenter clubs. You know, it's different. It meant everything for that guy's bike to run, to be able to go from here to Texas or from here to South Carolina. it meant everything for that. Nowadays, it's like, we just put it on the trailer and we'll take it over here, and we'll get out and we'll ride around a little bit and then we'll put it back and we'll come back. And I mean, and a lot of us, and I don't put that against anybody for having to put it on a trailer, because a lot of times that's the only thing that they can do. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong with that. Because you can't get 6 motorcycles out to Sturgis by yourself. It doesn't work. Or you can't put a show together by yourself, and take all the stuff that you necessarily need to do that, and I don't put that all on everybody, but
no, but it was a much more mobile culture of the time, that the whole thing, like a lot of these kids are trying to recapture and recreate that era of the 70s where everybody was, tripping across the country and staying in tents and stuff, and a lot of that was the economy of it and the nature of it, the type of individuals that were doing that. It was a different place,
Yeah, I see. I see that in the culture today, we have a couple of groups out here in Michigan that are actually doing just that. They actually have gathered themselves up like chopper sportsters and stuff like that, and long neck frames and long, we call them long bikes, and they're actually a small group of kids, and I call them kids because they're in their 20s, and they've actually put together a small band of them, say 20, 25 of them, that are actually doing that same culture base. They're out riding all the places, they're doing all the stuff they do, and they're all starting out on the Sportster level, and I'm watching it, and it's growing.
Dude, they're having fun. I mean, that's the bottom line, is that they're having fun again. And I'll tell you what, the part of the 70s that they are getting right is that middle finger in the air to everybody who thinks anything else about it. They don't care. They don't want to fit into your niche for them. They don't want to participate in shit that you have for them. They're doing their own thing. I love that.
Yeah, me too. I really do. And I think that they're going to branch off, and it's a culture that's it really hasn't died. I mean, everybody thought it was going to be a phase, back in the day. Well, it's just a phase they're going through, and I don't know. It's been going for a while, I guess, huh?
we got
it's true.
40-some years or 50-some years, it's been doing.
We got a couple on Facebook, a couple of your fans checking in. Tom Kiefer said he's checking in on his brother Steve. Anthony Cantarello from Daytona Beach is in the house with us. Speaking of Daytona and Tom Kiefer, that's something, man. Like, talk about recreating a place, time, and the camaraderie. Let's talk about Sons of Speed, because I don't think without you and Barry Wardlaw and a couple guys, like, I don't think Sons of Speed would have been. It might not have been at all, but like definitely wouldn't have been as cool as it was for me. Watching that thing from the inside and watching you guys in Billy's shop, you guys made that whole thing just such a special experience.
Well, I have to say that the brainchild of that is always going to be Billy Lane. That was his brainchild, and that was what he wanted to say. I'm just glad that I could be part of that, and I believe that working with a great bunch of guys, and I mean there were I don't even make a list of them, but there were 8 or 9 of them that A1 Mike, I think it was Barry, there was Rod, Paul, Rick.
Yeah, don't let me leave out Grimy, because Grimy was like a kid in the candy shop there. He really was. And Tom, and I mean there's just a ton of them that were out there that, and it would just rotate, come and go. Some came in for a while, some left, some came back. But it was everybody together that, and here's the best way I can explain it. Okay. And here's how I've come to conclusion with it. It was like putting, and I have to say thank you to Billy a lot, because I think that, his brainchild actually spawned this, which was great. But here's what it was like. It was like putting a group of surgeons together in the most critical time, and I don't want to say during war, but
we'll use it as an example, okay? And you had an operating room, and it was full of surgeons, and there was no egos, okay? There were no egos. There were no, hey, I do this better, or this or that, or so on and so forth. It was all about just whatever needed to get done got done, and the next person picked it up and went with and just the vast knowledge of everybody that was in there, like Mike walked in one night. Hey, what did you get done? What didn't you get done? Oh, we didn't get that done. Well, let me get it up here on a lift. We just created a lift, put it up on a table. And Mike just started working on that. Mm-hmm. Grammy come in, one day, and he says, Rod says, well, we got Warren's bike came in and it wasn't running right and it was broke down. I said, well, what do we do? I said, pull the fucking engine out of it. Let's get it apart. Let's see what the hell we can do here. And the front end was wobbly. Well, you weld this and you do that. And, Barry and I will do this over here. And it was just one thing to the next thing. And it was just.
And man, you guys went around the clock. I mean, you talk about dedication and like people that you guys, it was so badass to watch from the outside because you could just see every single person that was there was so full of the excitement of what they were doing and what they were a part of. But it wasn't because there was no cameras around. There was no television watching what you guys were doing. And I mean, even the stands full of people by the time it was race day, it was totally not about that. You guys were so in the moment. I was so proud of that whole thing.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, I thought, you're never going to get that feeling back, ever. I mean, it comes back. Don't get me wrong. I mean, last time it was great, but that whole thing was just, unbelievable. I mean, it was just bizarre. I think Barry and I only slept, I don't know, maybe 8-10 hours, maybe in 5 days.
Whoa.
And that was pretty much in a chair or wherever you could lay down. And I have to say thank you to Hank Young out there for allowing us to come over to his house down there and use his shower, catch a few minutes sleep, So
I think in Barry's case it was wherever he would fall down for a little bit too, right? I mean,
yeah, Barry's a good guy. I don't think so, but we certainly had a good time. That was true. We have to make sure. And of course, not to mention Xavier, he was there, and I want to put that out there, a little bit. I'm trying not to forget anybody, but if I have forgot you, I am sorry. I do apologize.
There was so many. I mean, and it's awesome because, you wonder if when the pages of history are being written to the people that are in those stories, do they know that they're making history? And you guys had to know that you were making history with this.
I don't think it entered anybody's mind, actually, Chris. I think the only thing that really entered people's mind was whether or not we could get it to do it. What was the dream child of a person that wanted it to happen? You know what I mean? That's what we were there for.
Man.
We were there because I think it was because of friendship and camaraderie. I really think it was the friendship that runs deeper than most people realize.
When I was sitting in that shop, I was there at 12:30 or 1 o'clock one night. And I was watching everybody just run around, Barry's in the back working on a set of rods. You had, I think at the time you had Warren's Indian apart and you guys were going through the motor and there was just a flurry of activity. Paul had just come in. His bike was basically in pieces. And I just sat there and for me, I could absolutely see that history was unfolding right in front of me. I mean, maybe it's just because I'm a storyteller and that's kind of what I do, but it was amazing. From right there across the room, you could see it was history.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of pictures out there still of that somebody was snapping pictures all over the place as we were doing that, So that's a story that needs to be told,
Yeah, there's a ton of good photography out there of it. I mean, I remember walking in that shop and just seeing you and Warren and Billy and Paul and a couple other people, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool watching everybody do their own thing. So.
I don't think Billy slept probably 6 hours in those 5 days.
Yeah,
It was. I still enjoy. I think back, and I think that's probably been one of the most exciting times that I've had in easy decade. Maybe more. That just really was a moment in your life that that. You're never going to have that again. If we could, it would be phenomenal, but it's just a moment in your life that you go, wow, that was great. That was a great moment.
When you've had some great milestones too, man. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome for you to put that up there with, some of your big achievements like the AMD stuff, and I mean you've been to the top.
Well, I think staying humble is a big thing. I try not to. I always remind myself that, you put your pants on just like everybody else does.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to carry. I try not to carry an ego. I've been told that I'm an asshole, which is pretty good. That's good enough. And that's Mr. Asshole to most people.
Hey,
but,
Robert Kelly's coming in from Facebook. He says, "Leave the ego at home. Best thing I've heard, and need to surround myself around more people like that. Best events are ones that are like that." You got people giving you props. Jeff Quilty is in, said Steve is one of a kind, much love and respect. A lot of people giving you shouts off on Facebook.
Well, I appreciate it. And
for sure.
I think part of my biggest thing is, I truly, honestly, will help just about anybody that needs it. You know what I mean? And that's the big thing I think that happens in life, that we forgot that, this whole industry was actually formed over a bunch of guys hanging around and going, "Hey, what do you want to do?" "I don't care. What do you want to do?" "Well, let's do this." Okay, so they'd all sit around in the garage and pull apart somebody's motorcycle because John's upper end isn't working right. Well, then we'd all pull it apart and we'd all kind of, do it. You did it when you were a kid with mini bikes. You did it with bicycles. Where did all of that go? Just because you get to this next point doesn't mean that this all stops and you become, whatever. I mean, I've been, and the reason why I say I've been called an asshole, and trust me, this I have to just clarify this for a minute, that people don't want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
Okay. And I personally will tell you what the truth is. Okay. And I don't sugarcoat it. That's the truth. And I've had kids come in here with 883 Sportsters and they want to make them 1200 Sportsters. And I could go, "Hey, no problem. Let me take it in the back. Let me take $1,500 to $2,000 of your money, create a 1200cc bike that I know isn't going to give you what you really want. Or you could sell that 883 for $3,000, put the $2,000 that you're going to pay me in with it, and go buy a 1200."
Right.
Buy one newer, and they don't want, when I tell them that, they may not want to hear it, but that's the truth, So I think what's the most important is honesty and integrity has lost its way with this industry.
Amen.
Mm-hmm. But I think, I think that's, not 100% true in the sense that we're all talking right now. And I feel like, the three of us have some of that. And I think that's, for me, at least when I saw Sons of Speed that first time around in Daytona, that's what it represented to me, was like, oh, this is what was lost. Like, this is what is missing. This is what drew me to the motorcycle industry in the first place. This is the camaraderie, the kind of selflessness. It wasn't about winning. It was about getting a job done and helping your brother out. And I think that's a huge piece that, it just kind of restored my faith in what we do and the industry, and I think that's huge.
I agree.
And you're one of those guys, Steve, when my motorcycle is not running right, I'm always like, I know I can call Steve because he'll talk me through it, and you've done it before. Like, so start with this.
Yeah.
What about this? I don't even remember where the hell I was, but I was broke down somewhere. You were like,
I
don't know. Yeah.
I fixed many of bikes over phones. People go,
I know.
Well, I just tell them to put the bike right on the phone and I'll take care of it. Yeah.
Well, what goes on?
Good to have friends like you, for sure.
What goes on for Steve Broyles this year? What do you got? What do you got coming up in 2018? What do you see?
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's going to be a great year. I really have that. I'm glad that 17 is over. How's that?
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that happened in 17 that I would not like to have repeated. I don't know if anybody knew this either, but when I went to Sons of Speed, I was actually a day late. I didn't get in until Tuesday, I think it was. And that's because my wife's mother had passed away that Sunday.
I do remember.
And I drove her down to Tennessee to her mother's house. And I was sitting there, and I'll tell you what, this is the type of wife that I think everybody really has to have, and the kudos to her too. I'm sitting at her mom's house, her mom and dad's house, and her dad died 10 days before her mother.
Oh,
okay, so she lost her father. 10 days later, she loses her mother, and I'm sitting there at the house with them on Monday, and Tanya looks over at me and she goes, "Why don't you look up a ticket and go down to Daytona?" She said, "Because that's really where you want to be, and that's what you need to do." And I said, "Well, I'll stay here with you if that's the case. I mean, I don't have a problem with that." And she goes, "There's nothing for you to do here, but there's a lot for you to do there."
Nice. That's a great woman right there.
Yeah, buddy. You're not kidding.
Yep.
For sure.
So that's,
Steve,
that's when I flew down, so big thing.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Steve, we got to do this again sometime. Just you and me, get you on the podcast, and I want to hear I want to hear it all. I want to get into all the gritty details of it, where we can really get into, everything about motorcycling, etc., your history. I know we got into a little bit here, but I'm looking forward to the time where we can.
We got to get him back on here because I want to hear some shit from the Crazy Files, because I know my man has been. He's been, yeah.
Yeah, I have to get deep into that crazy shit, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I really appreciate you taking the time, Steve. I know a lot of people were really excited about today's episode, and I think they got, hopefully they got what they were looking for. Because
I hope so. I hope they did, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I hope they did. And I would love to do this some other time. It'd be great. So let me know.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate everything that you do for the industry, and that you're out there doing the good work. So thanks a lot.
And I thank you guys too. Keep it up, okay?
All right, brother. Right. See you in Daytona.
You have a great day, Chris. See you later, Ken.
See you, Steve. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, definitely have to have him back on at another time and get into a little deeper, because man, he really has. He's been living this shit for a long time.
Yeah, he's got a wealth of knowledge, and it's always good to capture that. And I know it was funny because I was just driving. I think I was driving to Denver like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, man, I haven't talked to him in forever. Because we usually, I usually talk to him every, 3 or 4 months. And I was like, man, I haven't talked to him forever. And I called him, and out of the blue, and we had a great conversation. And I was like, man, this is like, we need to get him on we need to get him on the show, And there's a lot of those guys out there, him and, having Sugar Bear on. I think we're definitely heading the right direction for sure. So
I want to, I'm actually going to be working on this week an article with Mondo about the anniversary of Denver's Choppers, the 50th anniversary of Denver's Choppers.
Nice.
So I would really like to have Mondo on in the next couple weeks and talk about that. While it's still the anniversary year to celebrate for them. They had a great show in Sturgis and really kicked that thing off. And there's some long time history to talk about right there.
For sure, that'd be great. I'd love to have him on. Yeah, that's great. All right, Chris, we made it again.
We did. Another 60 minutes of all the shit we could fit.
71.
I appreciate everyone tuning in with us, and thank God. It looks like we got our audio situation handled, and we're gonna be
nice work
this.
On that, Chris.
This year is gonna be awesome for this show, so stay tuned.
Yeah.
You guys are more than welcome to send us messages, post on this on Facebook. Tell us people that you're interested in having on the show, some topics you'd like us to
we'd
cover.
love to hear having people on. I mean, I've got like a little bit of a list for sure of people that I want on, but I almost feel like those are ones that I'd want to do live. Like I'd want to have all three of us somewhere where we could just have a conversation. One of those is we need to go down to the West Coast Choppers Complex in Austin, Texas. I think that would be.
Dude, I'm down.
It would be interesting for sure.
I'm down with that.
So anyway.
Well, cool, man. Until next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, we'll announce to you who who the guest is going to be. Jeff Quilty, real quick. Jeff Quilty from Facebook, Happy New Year. Tom Kiefer, this is one of my favorite shows of the week. Thank you, brother. Always appreciate your support. We're going to get you on here pretty soon, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Anthony Cantrella.
I want to talk to him about that Resto Mod Mustang he's doing.
Right?
That thing, I'm so jealous.
Dude. And
that fastback.
Listen, that's the thing. Like, what we really want to promote right now, and the best thing that we can do for the industry, I think, is, share your projects. Get out in the garage, get some shit going. I mean, this is what we do. So show people what you're doing. Let us show it through the CycleSource pages. Post it up here. We'll bring some stuff in. But get out in the garage and do something.
And share this as much as you can. It just really helps us get the message out. So if you can share this, I'm working on getting the podcast out a little bit quicker so people can listen to just audio. But if you can share this on your Facebook page, your friends' Facebook pages, all that stuff helps. Liking, commenting, all that stuff really helps. So we really appreciate all the love and support out there. So thanks again.
And until next week, this has been Shop Talk. I'm Chris.
And I'm Ken, and we're out.